Trey Hendrickson, who led the NFL in sacks last season, is still awaiting a new deal with the Bengals. And for the very latest, and he's been asked this question thousands of times, Ben Baby joins us. Ben, what is going on this front?
Hannah, you might want to grab some popcorn, some fruit snacks, maybe some beaver nuggets from Buc-ee's, and settle in for a little bit, because this stalemate is going for a while here. When we last talked to Trey Hendrickson, he made a very clear indication that he does not want to play out the final year of his current deal. And Hendrickson is looking for a long-term deal with guarantees, and the team is eyeing a short-term deal. And Hendrickson believes that what he's looking for is an appropriate indicator of where his value really lies. And so trying to find that middle ground and seeing which side budgets first, that's going to be the big question in getting this resolved. And going back to the league meetings in which I asked Bengals Executive Vice President Katie Blackburn about what it's going to take to keep Hendrickson happy in 2025 and in Cincinnati, I got the sense that it needed both sides coming together, with Hendrickson perhaps moving a lot closer to the Bengals and him moving towards his angle. And talking to guys in the locker room, there's been a lot of support for where he's at and for how he's went about things. Ja'Marr Chase said this week that he loved the energy that Hendrickson brought when he was at practice just a few weeks ago, and that he deserves to be paid. And it's a sentiment that even Joe Burrow has echoed. But the big question, are the Bengals going to invest in someone who turns 31 this year? I think that's a big heart of the matter, because the Bengals definitely have the money to do it if they want.
So, and that's key, because the perception of the Bengals is this team just doesn't have enough money, right, to get things done. But they signed Higgins, they signed Chase, and now they have enough money, as you said, for Hendrickson. But here's what I don't get, and if this is maybe indicative of the way they do business, why isn't their first-round draft pick, Shemar Stewart, not participating in OTAs, hasn't signed his rookie deal? What's going on there?
Yeah, I don't know how the Bengals are getting through practice right now with all these edge rushers currently out, but definitely Shemar Stewart has been one that every time we're out there on the sideline watching from a distance, and it's been a situation that's never really been right from the beginning. At the very outset of the negotiations, there was a dispute over the training camp roster bonus from a source who is familiar with those negotiations and how they've gone. That got settled pretty quickly from what I was told. It then shifted towards a situation regarding the contract language. And this is a big part that potentially could void future guarantees. In Shemar's side, they're looking for language that's similar to what other players have had. And while the Bengals do contend that it's a fairly standard contract that rookies get, we do know that they are fiercely protective of that guaranteed money and really do not want that to turn into dead money in future years. And in talking to Shemar, he wants to be on the field as quickly as possible, wants to be getting physical reps instead of these mental reps, but he also wants to minimize that risk. And whether those sides can iron out that language, that's going to be huge. The interesting thing about this and why it's unique, he hasn't signed that participation waiver. He wants to exercise all of his leverage that he can right now to make sure he's got a contract he feels comfortable with as he starts this rookie season.
I just keep thinking about Al Golden coming into Cincinnati. He doesn't have any players. Ben Baby, maybe one day we'll talk X's and O's instead of contracts, my friend. Thank you. What do you think of what you just heard, of sort of everything that's going on? I mean, obviously they spent so much money on the offensive side of the ball.
If you took the team name off and you just described the situation, you'd guess Cincinnati Bengals. With Shemar Stewart, with Trey Hendrickson, this is how they operate. They have the contract drama of the Cowboys, but normally they don't have the cash of the Cowboys. They're their older, weirder cousin in those situations, okay? But when I look at this Bengals team, I'm thinking about a team that needs to hit the ground running. Joe Burrow got better as the season went along last year. His quarterback rating increased from September on to October, November, and then December. But it was 105 in September, so he's still really good then. But they need to be really sharp in week one. They're not going to be because of the contract drama with their edge rushers. Ben Baby wrote on ESPN.com recently that Trey Hendrickson was 48% of their sacks. Why are you playing games with 48% of your sacks? I don't care that you're over 30 years old, okay? I'm over 30 years old. I feel great. And so you can give me as many contracts as you'd like, ESPN. And so when I'm looking at the situation, I don't know if Lou Anarumo was the problem, okay? I don't know if Al Golden is even going to be upgraded over Lou Anarumo, okay? But what I do know is that they need to get their contract situation settled. They need to be introspective about why they have these slow starts, because I don't think it's anything to do with preseason reps or training camp. It's to do with contract stuff that never gets resolved.
Ooh, how to follow that? Older, weirder cousin. They're like the Shelbyville
So
of
good, right?
the NFL. I think that the Bengals are betting that Al Golden can do a better job developing young players than Lou Anarumo. Obviously had a ton of success in college, because developing young players has been the problem with this defense. Now you could also argue identifying and drafting young players has been the bigger issue. No question about that. But I do think that there are players, particularly in the secondary, that at least have promise. It's not devoid of talent. You have DBs who at various points have played well. Dax Hill, who was injured much of last season, has played well. Cam Taylor-Britt, plays corner on the outside, has had stretches where he's looked good. Geno Smith was great 2 years ago in Baltimore, by the way. So if I'm Al Golden, I think my biggest hope really starts in the back end, that you can get some of those players to be more consistent.
Yeah, and it's not just that they have to play well, but where they have to play well specifically, and that's in the red zone. That was the biggest problem for the Bengals defense last year, outside of the fact that they had nobody who could rush the passer besides Trey Hendrickson. They were 30th in red zone touchdown rate allowed last year. And when quarterbacks threw against them in the red zone, they scored touchdowns on 34% of their pass attempts, the highest rate for any team in football. And that some of that is talent, but a lot of it is just communication. It's working together. It's, manipulating routes. It's dealing with crossers and picks and all that stuff. And it's about really mental stuff, even more than the physical talent stuff in those kind of tight quarters. So I know that Trey Hendrickson's going to be the big story. They have to get him signed. I agree with Kevin wholeheartedly. But Al Golden has to coach up that back end. They have to play better, have to play smarter. That was really the thing that worked on this Super Bowl run a couple of years ago. That was such a smart defense, so good at passing routes off, so good at not making mistakes that were going to cost them big plays. That's not been the case in Cincinnati over the past couple of years.
The Cleveland Browns, who have had one of the messiest, ugliest quarterback situations in the league for years, are taking a whole group of quarterbacks and putting them together.
I just always approached every day as if I'm the starter, no matter where I was on the depth chart.
You've got 4 guys that are starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL.
And I can talk on things, and hopefully they listen. I'm not a mentor. I play football.
That's Joe Flacco, obviously the most experienced player in this quarterback room, 40 years old, 191 starts in the NFL. Kenny Pickett, only other quarterback with NFL experience who's healthy, 25 starts in 3 seasons, 24 with the Steelers and 1 last year with the Eagles. And then, of course, you have rookies Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders also vying for a spot. Time for In Case You Missed It. Here's Browns wideout Jerry Jeudy from OTAs weighing in on the quarterback competition.
I like it, because that's just making each quarterback get better, compete against each other, really drive them to really be the best version of themselves. So, you always want that as a quarterback.
You throughout your
career. For a quarterback. Go ahead.
Bill, which of the 4 do you think is the best fit for the offense?
I would say Joe Flacco because of what he does in the play-action game. Kevin Stefanski's best offenses have been with heavy doses of play-action, and when he was in Cleveland a couple years ago, Joe Flacco's QBR was 45 points better with play-action than it was without play-action. The quarterback to rely on is none of these quarterbacks. Rely on the run game and then work the play-action off of that.
Hey, I don't know if it matters, and it probably won't, but Kevin Stefanski kind of owes Joe Flacco, don't you think, for what Flacco has done for him in his career? All right, in case you missed it, here's Patrick Mahomes on Travis Kelce's decision to return and play for the Chiefs again this season.
If it's the last ride, you would never know. I mean, the way he's talking about football, the way he's talking about working and trying to be even better this year than he was last year. I mean, he's not. It doesn't seem like a guy that it's his last ride. Like he's tired of the job. I mean, he's in here, he's working. I know his body feels good. I think it feels better than even last year before going into last season. Just because I think he's motivated to go out there and have an even better year than he had this last.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Kelce take a step back at times last season. What do you expect going forward?
I think that for Kansas City, the challenge this year is going to be managing his workload to ensure he is the best version of himself come January when inevitably they'll be playing and need him. And I really think that something that has to happen in this Chiefs offense is they need another answer versus zone coverage. You saw Xavier Worthy really emerge as Patrick Mahomes' favorite target versus man, but Travis Kelce dominated targets versus zone as he has over the course of his career. He had 65. The next closest Chiefs receiver had 35. So whether it's a Noah Gray or a young receiver, maybe Rashee Rice when he comes back, somebody else has to help manage that particular part of the offense.
Yeah, Mahomes best in the NFL against the zone, 75 QBR. All right, meanwhile, let's go to Indy. The Colts held their first OTA practice this week. Here's their head coach, Shane Steichen, on their quarterback competition. This is what he said, and I quote, "It's an open competition. Those guys are competing. We're breaking down the reps. They're both getting 1 rep. They're both getting 2 reps. I think through OTAs, we've got 9 good practices. They'll both get about 170 reps apiece with those guys, with the 1s and the 2s. We'll flip-flop them. We got Anthony Richardson. We got Daniel Jones. Equal reps. How do you like it, Kevin?"
I think the whole situation's a little stupid, to be quite honest with you. I think that the way the Colts have played this out, giving Daniel Jones $14 million is never the answer to anything. I think they've mismanaged Anthony Richardson, okay? He's thrown 348 passes at the NFL level for a guy who needed to play a lot of football. You undercut him last year by benching him. I understand maybe he needed a couple weeks off, but I just don't know what you were thinking as far as drafting a project and not letting him play football. Now you're going to have him split reps, and those are hard to come by in the modern NFL with modern training camp rules and how practices work. The fact that he's going to get 170 reps, again, that is half of the reps, the number that he's had of total NFL throws. It's just not enough. You've got to let him practice more. You've got to let him play more.
Completed only 48% of his passes last year. Kevin says, stupid. That's the way you're handling this.